Hey folks, can we get our seats here and get started? Hey, good morning. I'm Joe Hillier, and I'm going to be introducing Chief Busey here this morning. Chief Busey, I think we all know this man. He's been around since 1991. Is that right? 1991, policing our community and keeping us all safe and secure. And been our chief here since 2014. And without further ado, the man, the myth.
Well, good morning. It's been a while since I've been able to be in front of this group. I was here a couple weeks ago, and Sheriff Troyer gave you an overview of law enforcement and crime in the county. So we're going to zoom in a little bit on Gig Harbor, and I'm going to zip through some slides. I'm going to act like Ross Perot here and show you some graphs, if anybody remembers that reference. And we'll open it up for questions and see what's on your mind. So with that, move right along. So here is your current Gig Harbor Police Department. That picture was taken on a very cold 30-degree day, I think last February, something like that. Yeah. So, but we thought that was a cool representation of the harbor on the veteran. And so we try to do something unique every year with our group photo, and that one came out okay. So part of our department is here too. I'll point out our two detectives, Jared Daniel, Detective Sergeant Trey Federici, and our Lieutenant Fred Douglas here. So they're come to be my security detail. Yeah. Never know when Larry's going to get restless, so keep an eye on him, okay? Yeah. So I would start by reminding people that the Gig Harbor Police Department serves the city limits outlined in yellow there, and we're surrounded by unincorporated Gig Harbor. And we partner very well with the Sheriff's Department out here. A great working relationship, almost seamless on some of our calls. We share the same radio channel and everything. So if they get a hot call or we get a hot call, you're going to see both sets of uniforms show up there. And that works very well for us. And we also have an occasional State Patrol presence here on Highway 16 and 302. And we work just as well with them. My clicker doesn't want to work. Okay, so we're set for right now. We're staffed at 21 commissioned officers for about another week. And I mean that because we have two that are retiring in the next week. So if you know Sergeant Dougal and Officer Mike Allen, they're both retiring. And so we're going to be down a couple. We actually are budgeted at 25 in this year's biennial budget. The council allotted us 4 additional positions. So we're in the process of trying to fill those. Kind of difficult. If you haven't noticed, it's hard to recruit police officers right now. So we're taking both lateral and for the first time in many years, some entry-level applicants. So the entry-level people, of course, haven't been to the academy. And so that process to get them fully up and running for us is about almost a year from the date of hire. So we lean a lot towards laterals, meaning experienced police officers from other agencies. And they come in about a 3-month training program through us, and then they're up to speed. So long way of saying that right now, as I stand before you, we're fully staffed to our 2018 level, and we're trying to get up to our 2023 level of 25 very soon. We do have 3 civilian staff, 2 record specialists, and a property evidence custodian. And we have a volunteer cadre as well, what we call them COPS volunteers, citizens offering police support. And they do a variety of tasks for us that really, they're kind of a force multiplier for us. They'll run errands to the crime lab, they'll take evidence, they'll take cars to the shop, or they'll do some administrative tasks or some special projects. They do some vacation checks for us. They do handicap parking enforcement. They're authorized to write tickets for that if needed. So they're a big help to us. In 2022, we had over 13,000 calls for service. We made 275 arrests. And most small agencies like us, we have a little mantra that says no call too small. So we take everything from the barking dog to the bank robbery, right? So everything in between. Here's our department structure. The 4 highlighted positions there are what we anticipate high. Right. So detective isn't a hire. We would promote an officer or assign an officer. It's not promotional as a detective for probably a 3 to 4 year period. And they gain valuable information, really help out the department there. So right now we have 2 detectives, including the sergeant. So we want to make that a 3-person unit. This year, we added a full-time property and evidence technician. Our property room has just an immense amount of items, as you can imagine, and each one of them has to be accounted for along the way. I mean, all the way from the time the officer collects it to the time it's booked into evidence to presented in court, returned to the victim. All that has to be categorized and cataloged along the way. What am I missing? Our chaplain, our volunteer chaplain, a big help to us. Roger Roth has been with us for over 20 years. He helps us a lot with crisis, death notifications, things like that. So really a calming presence and much appreciated within our department. I talked about our cops volunteers, and then our police explorers are the like the cadets, the junior teenage volunteer cadre. We shut that down in COVID. We just simply, it was too hard to keep them coming to meetings and things like that. So we hope to reactivate that here probably in the next year. Our department's divided up into 3 divisions. Patrol is the face of the department, right? So these are the officers when you call 911 that show up in the police car or motorcycle or bicycle, and they answer your calls. They field most of the duties there. Our investigations unit, again, our detectives working with that property room, will do follow up on the more complicated cases. They'll come to crime scenes if needed, and anything that requires follow up beyond the patrol level will be handled by our investigations unit. They're very, very busy. And then our administrative section. If you've been to our office, you've met our 2 wonderful ladies that work the front office. They'll answer the phones. They're not our primary dispatch service, but they'll handle a non-emergency. All of our police reports and citations. They'll do gun permits, right? For city residents, they'll come in and take your fingerprints and get your concealed pistol license ready. They'll handle firearms transfers and just myriad other projects that we give them. Then they're just delightful people. So our vision is to provide the best possible service to our community. And this is a mantra that we came up with a few years ago now, and it's really kind of taken root. And when I introduced this concept to the department, what I meant was I want the officer or the records specialist or whomever is dealing with the public, when they're done with that contact or towards the end of that contact, I want them to be able to stand in front of somebody and say to themselves, have I offered them the best possible service, right? There's many layers to that if you really break it down. And the answer to that should be yes. And that's become how we do business. And I think that if any of you have interacted with our department members, you hopefully will have felt that they offer a very customer service oriented approach to how we do law enforcement. So we track our calls for service. This is a 24-month rolling average by day and time of day for our most busy times. And guess what? Friday and Saturday nights at about 9 p.m. happens to be our busiest times. So that we staff accordingly to that. We'll have slightly more officers on Friday and Saturday nights than we would, say, on a Tuesday morning at 2 a.m., right? So we track that every month, as well as our response time. So I'll explain the priorities here. Priority 1 are these serious, like robbery in progress sort of calls that we get. This snapshot is taken from April of 2023. So we had 3 of those most serious priority 1 calls, and our average response time there is 2 minutes and 5 seconds. That's pretty darn good, really. And then priority 2 or maybe like residential alarms or things like that. Nothing that we're going to be running lights and sirens to, but we want to kind of get there in time. So 5 minutes in Gig Harbor's traffic during a day is probably a pretty good response for priority 2. Priority 3 or even the lesser things, a dog running loose or something like that. And priority 4 would be a phone message normally, something like that. So all told, our average response time is under 10 minutes. So I'll talk a little bit about crime stats, and I'll preface this by saying that the numbers I'm going to give you haven't even been released to the public yet. So I'm kind of on the edge here. I'm not supposed to release these till like July 10th, but we'll give you the inside scoop. All right. It's our little secret online in the World Wide Web. Right. So, but a little background first. We divide up our crimes into group A offenses. And then further, we break them down to crimes against persons, property, and society. Well, what's a crime against society, right? Well, those are like gambling offenses or noise ordinance problems or prostitution or things like that. So those are crimes against society. But crimes against persons are like assaults and something where somebody's physically injured. And of course, property is theft, largely. Those are based on reported crimes. Now, sometimes those are officer sees it in progress and intervenes. So that still could be a group A offense, but generally they're reported crimes. Somebody picks up the phone and calls for the police. Then we have group B offenses. Those are the lesser things, the trespasses or just something you'll see in a moment. Some of the animal offenses, things like that. Those are based on actual arrests, right? So that's how those data are compiled. So when we put that in motion, here's our group A offenses, just as a sampling. Everything from assault and forgery to kidnapping and counterfeiting. Group B offenses, again, are like loitering. Even DUI is considered a Group B offense, and those are based on actual physical arrests. Okay, so now we have the backdrop for how we collect our stats. I normally save this slide till after I break those three categories down, but I'm going to jump right to it because I was startled when I got this information. Again, this is 2022. Shouldn't say I was startled. We expected this. We predicted this based on some factors that we'll talk about coming up. But we had a 34% increase in the number of crimes reported. Okay, that's what, 283, if my math is close to 283 more crimes in 2022 than we did the prior year. Okay, kind of saw it coming. We'll break that down. We clear our cases at about 23%. I think we're actually better than that. We tweaked our internal system a little bit to close out some of the lingering cases that just kind of stayed in our files perpetually. So our clearance rate is probably in the upper 20s, which is pretty good when you compare that to other agencies in the state. So we'll go back to our crimes against persons. Again, Class A or Group A offenses. These are the serious offenses. And what jumps right off the page at me is that our assaults are up. Now, it's a small statistical sample, right? 18 aggravated assaults is still really kind of small for a jurisdiction our size, but we're up 80%. So what's going on there? We'll have to take a look at that. Crimes against property. This is where that 283 more crimes, 200 of them are circled right here. Okay. So burglary, theft, even robbery, motor vehicle theft. What fuels those? Any ideas? Drugs. There you go. And motor vehicle theft was off the charts, and it was everywhere. I think Sheriff Troyer cited something like they lose 8 cars a day in our county. That's insane. Motor vehicle theft in the last couple months, just anecdotally, I haven't analyzed numbers, has fallen off a little bit. Partly, I think, because due to a operation from the auto theft task force that operates in our area and the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. They broke up a chop shop in Key Peninsula. And so we were losing an inordinate amount of vehicles. And I think that's probably slowed down a little bit. Part of the problem too, and I'm going to hit on it again in just a moment, but we were pulling people out of stolen cars and not taking them to jail, right? The jails were shut down for COVID or full to their staffing limits. So there's a lot of crimes that we were arresting people for, felony crimes that we simply couldn't book them into jail for. So guess what? We take car thief out, send him down walking down the sidewalk. He's going to go steal another car to get to his next destination, right? So crimes against society, weapons violations are up. Again, a fairly small number, 13, but still that gets our attention. So we'll take a look at that as well. So in grand total, our crime rate, and we're going to talk about crime rate here in a second, is 88 crimes per 1,000 residents, right? Now, why is crime rate a bad metric for us? Because Gig Harbor grows enormously during the day, right? We know from my data is getting a little dated, but we grow by about 88% during the daytime from our sleeping population, right? The last time I looked, we were the 4th largest growing city by percentage in the state. So Redmond, right? Tukwila, Fife, and Gig Harbor all grew proportionally the largest during the day. So we have to deal with other stuff, right? Shoplifting, it's the employment, the retail theft hub of our area. So with that comes more people, more crimes. So I've actually listed 2 numbers here. Here's our 88 crimes per 1,000, which is statistically measured against our nighttime population. But if we measure it against our daytime, it would be about 47 crimes per 1,000. So the reality is somewhere in between there is our real crime rate. I realize too that we're mixed in with other communities that grow a little bit too, or shrink. For instance, Milton actually gets smaller during the day, right? That's a bedroom commuting community. So we have to put that a little bit of context, but we're right in our wheelhouse. One of the first things I look at when I get our annual crime report is our Group A crimes, what's been going on with them. And we've been pretty flatline for many, many years until, guess what happened in 2021, right? So we took a big jump. Our officers per 1,000 is fallen off a little bit, but again, the city council approving those 4 new positions is going to help us catch up quite a bit. But the FBI recommendation, if you will, is 2.5 officers per 1,000. We're floating at right about 1.7, 1.8. We hope to close that gap with some new hires. Now, if you've heard the answer to this, don't give it away. But let me ask you this. If we ranked all of the 50 states and the District of Columbia, so 51, and we said, where does Washington fall in officers per 1,000, right? Where do we fall on that list of 51? Any guesses? We are dead last, not even close to number 50, and we've been that way for 9 or 10 years. So law enforcement staffing in this state is way behind the curve. All right. Okay, so but what's our takeaways really in Gig Harbor? It's still a really safe place. Our violent crimes are down a little bit. Our theft is up dramatically, driven largely by car theft. We know that. The drug law changes that we'll talk about here in a moment should help a little bit. And then jail staffing, as Sheriff Troyer indicated, they're really on a push to up their jail staffing to be able to accommodate more prisoners, inmates there. So what happened in 2021? Remember the Blake decision? February of 2021, the Supreme Court said that our drug laws were unconstitutional. It lacked one word. That word would be knowingly. Somebody had to knowingly be in possession of drugs. Since it didn't have that word, they ruled the whole law unconstitutional. How did the state respond? With a really bizarre, they could have just said, put the word knowingly in the law, but a really bizarre system of, let's give everybody a couple of warnings first, right? And so we were pulling people out of cars every morning. This picture here drew a little bit of scrutiny on social media when I posted it, but that's our reality, right? People in Gig Harbor wince when they see stuff like that, but we were seeing that almost every morning in our parking lots here in Gig Harbor. People in fentanyl induced comas, really overdoses. And these two guys here even had their little torches in their laps. They just fell asleep from smoking fentanyl in their car, in the parking lot, usually a stolen car, as a matter of fact. And when we wake them up, they burst to life, they start their car and they drive away and we can't chase them, right? So that was 2021. In 2023, we've fixed it a little bit. It's now a crime. It was really technically a crime in 2021. We just couldn't arrest for it for a variety of reasons. But now, effective July 1st, the new law kicks into play. We really have to wait till August 14th. Long story behind the scenes, but it's a gross misdemeanor now. We can arrest somebody on site for using drugs, right? Or possessing drugs. Diversion is encouraged. Diversion meaning drug treatment, right? That's what we wanted all along. Law enforcement spoke up very loudly in 2021 to the legislature and said, we want to incentivize treatment. We don't want to throw drug addicts in jail. It's expensive. We don't have room for them. They're taking the place of other people. And it's a revolving door, right? So we wanted to get them into treatment. That's was very clear. So we finally got that. And then the person can get their drug record expunged the first, I think it's 2 times that they have a conviction if they successfully complete treatment. So we're hoping that will give us a foot in the door, right? If we get a hold of somebody that's a retail theft chronic suspect who's always got drugs on them, by maybe taking them to jail for that, then we can slow some things down. So the law, I will point out that the state passed does prohibit local jurisdictions from enacting their own like drug paraphernalia or open use laws. So the state wanted to really gain control of that. Remember pursuits, right? We couldn't chase hardly anybody. In 2021, this is what it looked like, a very narrow list of crimes, okay? In fact, they said violent crimes. And you have to dig really deeply into the revised Code of Washington to figure out what a violent crime is. You would think, oh, it's an assault, right? That's violence. No, it's a very narrow list of things like kidnapping and rape and just things that we don't often see in Gig Harbor, thankfully. So first of all, we start with that very narrow list of crimes. And then we had to establish probable cause for the person in the car before we could even try to stop them, before we could chase them. Well, that's almost an impossible barrier, right? It takes time to develop probable cause in most instances. And then they threw in a kicker that we had to have supervisory approval and oversight if your agency was over 10 commissioned officers. Well, we're well over 10, right? So we would have to have supervisory approval to engage in that pursuit. We don't always have 24-hour supervisory coverage. So we were literally calling a sergeant at home to wake them up to try to describe what was going on and whether we had authority to chase that car. Really was unworkable. We've gained a little bit of ground back. that narrow list of crimes remain. We don't often see the type of crimes that we would be eligible to chase someone for, like a robbery or something like that. We don't see a lot of that, thankfully. But they've lowered that threshold from probable cause to reasonable suspicion, right? So they've eased up a little bit on that. So that's good news, but that supervisory approval still remains. They've upped the number to 15. We wanted it to be 30, right? Because that seems to be about the size of an agency that has consistent 24-hour supervisory coverage. So at 15, we're still outside the box on that one. So we're going to see how this works. We're going to see if we can slow down some dangerous crimes a little bit, at least by being able to pursue them. A little more context for you too. You've seen videos on TV and the news about bad guys that are running will ram police cars to get out of the way, right? That's happened here in Gig Harbor. We lost 2 patrol cars to that, right? From 21 to 22. So then patrol cars about 58 grand, right? So yeah, not great. What are some other factors? Jail staffing. We've talked about that a little bit. We need to be able to staff up our corrections facilities quite a bit. And then loss prevention policies is something I haven't talked about. So the retail stores here, by and large, all the corporate stores have policies that say you can't apprehend, you can't get in front of somebody stealing merchandise. Totally get that. We don't want employees stepping in front of bad guy running out the door. Okay, that's going to be bad for a lot of people. But let's go a little further. A lot of those same corporate stores have policies that prohibit employees from even calling 911, right? That's crazy. So retail theft is absolutely rampant here. It's every day. We did a retail theft emphasis last quarter. 2 evenings we teamed up. We've got about 8 officers, including one from Pierce County. And we hit some of our regular places, both undercover and uniformed. And we got 23 arrests in 2 days. And we posted that online, and everybody's going, oh, hey, thank Gig Harbor for taking care of all these thieves, right? We could do that every day. That's the sad reality. So we're going to be doing those retail thefts emphasis patrols periodically, just to try to keep the local bad guys off balance a little bit. And maybe word gets out that, yeah, let's go outside of Gig Harbor to do our thieving, right? So, but those loss prevention policies were hurting us quite a bit. There are stores here that I called the bug light for thieves, right? People would come from all over Western Washington to steal from various stores. So we instituted what's called a business check program. And we educated some of the employees, some of the stores here. We said, listen, we get it. If your corporation says you can't call when you see somebody stuffing merchandise into their coat or into their bag because you might be profiling them, right? That's what the fear is. So how about this? Just call 911 and ask for a business check. And we worked with our dispatch agency, South Sound 911, and we said, hey, if a store calls up and says they'd like a business check, don't ask them any more questions, because that's going to put them at risk of violating their corporate policy, right? Say, this is Kelly, I'm working at the ABC store, and I'd like a business check. Thanks, we'll let Gig Harbor know. Hang up the phone. They put it out over the radio to our officers, and they say, hey, the ABC store would like a business check. That's kind of code for there's probably a shoplift or something bad going on. So our officers would go there, walk in the store, and a lot of times, if the suspects are still there, they would simply abandon a shopping cart full of merchandise or set down their bag that they probably stole from the shelf anyway, and walk out the door. So that's been moderately successful. I'm going to have to re-up that campaign a little bit with our local businesses because we're not getting as many of those business check calls, yet we still believe that the retail theft is occurring. So, but that's one attempt that we've put in place along with those emphasis patrols to try to slow down retail theft in our area. I would suggest that you follow us on social media. We have an active Facebook and Twitter accounts. Facebook is kind of bigger picture stuff. Twitter is more in the moment, right now happening stuff. So follow those. We try to keep everybody updated, and we enjoy the community engagement. Try to throw in a little humor every once in a while, usually self-effacing donut jokes or something like that. And I always like to throw out too a little plug for our JCOX, Gig Harbor Police Benevolent Fund. This is a 501c3 charitable organization that we established years ago from a donation from the JCOX family. The seed money they provided has allowed that to grow into, gosh, I think we're sitting at a $30,000 fund right now. We give away $2,000 or $3,000 in high school scholarships each year. We'll help crime victims. We'll help domestic violence victims. or I said crime victims. If something happens, we'll support law enforcement and volunteerism within our program. They largely underwrite things like National Night Out, which is coming up August 1st downtown, or our Halloween event downtown. So we stream a lot of money through the Jaycox Fund. We get a lot of donations for that. Our Shop with a Cop program, we call that Holiday Heroes, is also another Jaycox project. So with that, I've thrown a bunch of stuff at you and some data, and I know you have questions. So where can we go?
Thank you very much, Chief Busey. And let's start right here.
Morning, Terry.
Good morning, Emily. Thank you for being here today and being here for this community. I think we all appreciate that. I'm a very frequent user of the Cushman Trail system. And I know in the past, there was a problem with break-ins for cars parked there with trail users. And it's evidenced by the amount of glass in a parking stall. I can kind of monitor the progress of overseeing that. And I'm wondering what's going on now. Is it better or worse? I'm not seeing as much glass in the parking lot, so I'm thinking it's better. But you know, every time I walk the trail, I come back, I'm hoping my car hasn't got a broken window in it. And in most cases it doesn't.
Good question. I can only say anecdotally that I haven't seen as many vehicle prowl calls. We have taken some steps to try to address that, especially at a couple of our more targeted trailhead locations, those parking lots, using some covert cameras and some things like that. We've made some success there. We had some successes. We've made some arrests and things like that. Two things. First, don't leave anything visible in your car is really the lesson, because thieves nowadays, they're not going to break into a car and then rummage around to see what they want, right? They're going to look inside and look for the purse or the computer or the iPhone or something like that before they break a window, right? So if you have nothing visible, odds are you're not going to get broken into. Where was I going with my second point? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Maybe it's just don't leave things visible. Yeah, that's really the best advice of all. All right, you bet.
I hear your frustration that the pursuit on pursuits. This is an issue I know nothing about, but I'm curious what was the argument on the other side of that? Why were pursuits? Why are pursuits?
Okay, great question. I should have offered you some context. So the problem with pursuits is, of course, it creates a danger to everybody, including the officer, including the uninvolved citizen mainly, right? And of course, bad guy. But there was some disproportionate and inaccurate data put out there about how often pursuits were ending badly. For instance, I did a little bit of my own homework. I got to have a little conversation with Senator Dhingra, Monica Dhingra from Redmond, I believe, who held up the pursuit legislation in her committee initially until the 23rd hour of our legislative session. And that's the counter to it. We don't want to endanger our public, right? So I did a little research, and in the years preceding 2021, we had an average of 3 fatalities that were related to pursuits per year, right? And it didn't specify in the data I dug up whether the fatalities were like drivers of the stolen vehicle for the whole state, right? In that same time period, there was an average of 25 people killed or injured at railroad crossings. Where's the outrage for railroad crossings, right? So long way of saying this. What we need to do is rely on the common sense of the officers, train them very well about risk reward, the balancing test, we call it, right? We don't want to chase somebody for a candy bar. We don't want to do that, stolen candy bar. We want to chase them for this serious felony crimes. Right now, what are we not able to chase for? How about residential burglary? Can't chase for that. How about assaulting a police officer? If my partner gets thumped by somebody and they jump in a car and run, I can't chase them. How about hit and run with injury? We go to a parking lot of a scene where somebody's been injured by a drunk driver. Well, we'll take drunk driver out for a minute. Somebody's hit with a runaway, a hit and run car, and they leave the scene, and we're standing there. We can't chase them. So a little bit of common sense has to come into play. And I think it has to be good training for the officers to make good common sense decisions and use that balancing test. And I'm hoping that by a little bit of movement in this year's session that we can now expand maybe the list of possible crimes, because residential burglary to me is a head scratcher. Sale of a child, right? Child trafficking, can't chase for that. Are you kidding me? Right? That makes no sense. So good question. Thank you for allowing me to clarify. Steve. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we're here.
So just one of the slides, data point was 191 total lists, 186 or. Is there any reason to know with any?
I haven't scrubbed those numbers yet, but our juvenile crime rate is very low. Yeah. Where are we at next?
Thank you, Chief. You mentioned, I hit run this second ago. Was Chief Director of Police involved in the Bob and Jerry Maynard were hit on by a stolen truck on 16?
We only assisted the State Patrol with trying to search for the suspect that fled. Yeah, that was out of our jurisdiction.
Has that suspect been?
You know, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
I know that Jerry is just into rehab after 5 or 6 major surgeries.
Crazy.
Just able to keep her own clothes and stuff.
Yeah, and that was, as I recall, a stolen big Ford F-650 or something, almost a semi. Yeah, right. Yeah, that had been chased earlier in the day.
Right.
Yes. So, good morning. Yes.
And she said that the police officer told her that asked her several times if one of the three young ladies that attacked her, if one of them had touched her, and she explained, no, they were trying to take my purse.
Right.
My question is, if she, what would have been the consequences for the victim if she had tried to defend herself and actually did or touch the young lady that was trying to take her?
Yeah, no consequences in that instance. Yeah.
And someone that's trying.
Yeah. So the Supreme Court likes to use the word reasonable. I would ask anybody here to define reasonable for me. Right? You can't do it. But in the moment, what is reasonable? What's a reasonable response to trying to defend somebody taking your purse? Right? I'm guessing that the officer asked that question to see if maybe there was a mark on the suspect that we could use to, identify, right? Hey, did you reach out and scratch the person's face or something? Because that would help us identify that person quickly. In that case, by the way, we're making some decent progress. I don't want to talk too much about that, but we're rolling on that one. Yeah.
Chief, 2 quick questions. First, do you have a holding cell of some type for arrestees out there here, or do they have to go straight to the jail? And secondly, do you guys ever ticket anybody for speeding boats in the harbor? When I'm kayaking out there, I see some speeding boats.
Great questions. Okay. So we do have a holding facility within our police department. We have 4 little holding cells, right? But those aren't permanent overnight accommodations, if you will. That's just simply a place we can stash someone while we, do our paperwork and get them ready to transport to one of 3 jails that we utilize. So our primary misdemeanor jail is Kitsap County Jail. It's a little bit closer, and it's a little bit less expensive than the Pierce County Jail. We use Pierce County Jail for our felony bookings because by law, we have to book somebody into the jail in the county they're going to be prosecuted, right? So if Superior Court has to go to Pierce County. And then post conviction of greater than 20 days, so if somebody goes through our municipal court and they're sentenced to 20 or more days, we transfer them to Sunnyside, Washington, which is over by Yakima. And that's about half the price. So we've saved quite a bit of money by doing that. So good question there. Boats. We do have a Marine Patrol. I didn't make that part of my presentation, but it's out there generally on summer weekends in some of maybe the hotter, busier evenings as staffing allows. And of course, as we get towards that 25 staffing number, we hope to have the boat out even more. Do we ticket people for speed or wake violations? That's a hard one because it's hard to prove their speed. But we write probably an average of 1 ticket on the water per year. An actual ticket, and that's for the slow learner of the summer, right? That's somebody we've had other contacts with. Now you'll see our boat out there doing paperwork with a lot of boats. Those are recreational boating inspections. And so generally what we'll see is, hey, maybe they have a wake violation, right? So we'll stop them. We'll go, hey, you need to slow down a little bit. You're going too fast, causing too big of a wake, or your registration is expired, or your young child is on deck without a life jacket or something. So we'll stop them for that violation. We'll educate them. That's always our approach. And then we do a boating safety inspection. Just takes 5 minutes to go through your boat, show me your life jackets and a sound producing device and things like that. So that's a positive for us. We love that interaction, and hopefully the boater comes away with a little bit more knowledge. Yeah. Hi, Randy.
How are you doing?
I'm well.
Good to see you again.
I see.
I want to get back to the late decision. You had on your slide that the first was the gross misdemeanor. My reading of the law was the first arrest was a misdemeanor for 6 months, which I've never heard of before. Second arrest is another 6-month misdemeanor, again, which I've never heard before.
Mhm.
And then only when you got the third strike, did you go to a gross misdemeanor. And that then could put you in jail for 1 day after a year. So I don't know how the gig card police are monitoring this, number one. So if you arrest somebody for the first offense,
Mhm.
do you take them to jail and then do they go before the judge? And do you then throw them in jail for 6 months? Or what's the policy?
Okay. A lot of questions buried in there. Let me try to unpack that a little bit. Okay. Yes. And you're right. And I haven't taken the law apart, nor has our city attorney given us our briefing on this yet. But the first offense might be misdemeanor, but it's an arrestable offense. That's all we care about. Misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor are still going to be seen by our court, Gig Harbor Municipal Court. I think in there you asked, how are we tracking how many times a person's been arrested, right? So remember in this state that the police officer doesn't initiate charges, right? So the police officer discovers somebody using drugs, right? They can issue a citation maybe to start the process, or they can write a report, book them into jail. And the prosecutor is the one that initiates charges. Now they have access to, okay, let's take a look at how many times Randy has been arrested for drugs use. Oh, this is his 4th time. Yeah, hopefully 0, Randy. And so we're going to charge him not with a misdemeanor, but with a gross misdemeanor. And it really, all that comes down to is how long of a sentence will they receive, right? So that'll be caught probably at the prosecutor level. We do have a mechanism that the officer can run a criminal history in the moment, right, to see how many convictions they have. But regardless, it'll be all sorted out by the prosecutor. They're the ones that are responsible for charging the appropriate charge. Yeah, did I get? Seems like I missed something. Will we take people to jail? That varies. We have the discretion to cite and release somebody with a court date. A lot of that depends on their cooperation. Maybe how many times we've contacted them. You know, do we know this person? Are they a chronic problem in our community? Are they also stealing in conjunction with our contact with them? Things like that. We can decide. The officer can decide to take them to jail. The jail may say, we're not taking drug offenses yet because we don't have the staffing. So that remains to be seen. Well, they would still be held accountable. A citation is a court date. So they would still, regardless of whether we take them to jail or give them a piece of paper that says show up in court, they should show up in court. Right. Yeah. Very, very much so. Yeah. I was out of the country when that happened. I could defer to Chief Doan here for a moment, but yeah, I'm just getting up to speed on that because again, I was gone, but it sounds like I toured the site yesterday. Lieutenant Douglas and I went there, and I cannot tell you how incredible of a job that our fire department did, how close the flames got to the structures, and that they were able to keep that at bay. Among the best work I've seen in my 31 years here from our police department. So congratulations to Chief Doan. Chief, do you know what caused it? Yeah, John, he's going to answer the question for me.
I've seen some video of it. It goes along the road and there's multiple starts. And so it was obviously some type of chain dragging, brake drag, something coming from a car that spread it along the road to start the fire. So it was man caused, probably by a car.
Common this time of year, am I right? Yeah. Morning, Steve.
Chief, thanks for being here. Two questions for you. First one is, obviously car thefts are huge and, things are up in the city and everywhere. Do you guys see, where are vehicles primarily being picked from? What are some of the commonalities? And then second question, I know with all frustrations with the drug issues, but one of the goals or intents is to get people into treatment. How many people do you guys come across that are actually wanting to change?
Wanting to change, I'm going to do in reverse order here. Wanting to change, very few, very few. So that's why we wanted that incentivized treatment legislatively. We wanted to have that hammer again. We really want you to go to treatment, but should you choose not to, there's going to be a penalty. That penalty is what was lacking before. Because before we were waking people up, like in the picture I showed you, and literally handing them a business card. Hey, buddy, get some help. See you later. And it's crazy. It was crazy. So I hope I answered the second part of that. Motor vehicle theft. Great. And it's funny, I should have included this in my presentation. When I got these stats, I thought, oh my gosh, what did I miss here? I mean, we knew that vehicle thefts were up all over the county, all over the state, right? We knew this. But the number really shocked me when I saw it. And I said, okay, we got to crush this. So I pulled some data and developed a heat map. We're going to find the hot spots, right? That heat map is basically the whole city. It's crazy. It's everywhere. It's your driveway. It's the shopping centers. It's the Cushman Trailhead. It's wherever. Yeah.
You did not address handling and the chronic cancer. Right, we often see on the component side of the bridge. Are there ordinances in this community to dispel or to reduce that? And if so, how are you able to enforce those kinds of ordinances?
Well, I'm going to answer it by saying that our patrol officers are very skilled. Okay. Again, customer service, that BPS, best possible service, extends to a panhandler, right? In other words, we want to say you're in violation of an ordinance that we do have in this city that it makes it illegal to exchange goods across the curb line of a roadway within 200 feet of a roundabout, within 500 feet of the Olympic and Point Fosdick, and I think it's 200 feet from an overpass, right? Those locations weren't just randomly picked. It's based in traffic safety data. Where are collisions occurring, right? At the time that we pulled that data, we were having problems with roundabouts getting congested or even minor collisions for people stopping to give panhandlers some money, right? So now they don't have necessarily that economic income, if you will. So we're not seeing a lot of it here, knock on wood. It's a tough one. We do have a new position that's going to be funded, and I'm not sure, Mayor, when we're going to staff the H3 position. It's advertised very soon. Housing, Health, and Human Services position, basically a city social worker, to try to help the people that that are chronic to us. Now, again, our officers are really skilled at offering resources, steering people towards other resources, and trying to mitigate anything that they're doing, get them off the streets. Right. So that's kind of where we're at.
Chief, thanks for being here. Remember when the sheriff was here a couple of weeks, he was, one of my gentlemen, I was surprised at how much he was emphasizing the teenage crime. And you can see in the news a lot of stories of kids shooting each other and robbing and so on. Sure, but we really see.
Well, clearly, Larry, let's just call it what it is. We're in a Gig Harbor bubble, right? We're in a socioeconomic bubble, right? In other communities that aren't as fortunate, kids are running. I was having a good conversation with Bill before this presentation about keeping kids busy to keep them out of trouble. We have so many, we're blessed with so many opportunities for kids, sports, camps and clubs and things like that. And the ability to fund them. It's a very generous community in that regard. It's unfortunate to see what occurs in other communities and when kids have idle time and, you know, gangs start taking over. Yeah. Mhm. All right, Bill.
Roundabouts have been so now, I guess,
Mhm.
is there a disproportionate share of accidents occurring in the roundabout or less, or just normal?
Right.
Like, I can see a deer headlights, the deer, don't know which way to go.
Right. Somebody coming in too fast and somebody else getting paralyzed. Right. So when we introduced roundabouts, we had a whole bunch of collisions in them. Right. And the traffic engineers would defend that by saying, yes, you're going to have more accidents, but you're going to have less serious accidents. You're going to have little fender benders, but not injury collisions. Right. And I think now as roundabouts are more common throughout our whole country, really, but drivers have adjusted a bit. We still, I would say, if you ask me, again, the panhandling ordinance is really a traffic safety ordinance because we had most of those collisions in roundabouts. That number is probably decreasing a little as people adjust and get used to them a little bit. But long way of saying yes, more collisions in roundabouts, but less bad ones. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier. Stats that indicate the diversion is percent.
We don't, because it hasn't come into play yet. Again, that really won't kick in until after the July 1st law, right? So we'll see. Now, what's lacking, right, is where are these people going to go get their treatment? Tell me. That's my big question. And what's the certification for a therapist? Right? Can it just be a recovering addict that opens up shop and says, hey, I've been there, come talk to me and I'll give you a certificate? We don't know this yet. Law enforcement pushed for the Department of Health to certify or come up with a standard for treatment counselors, and that was not included in the legislation. So it'll be interesting, but talk with me later. We can open up Peter and Kelly's treatment center and, you know, make a lot of money there, right? So, yeah.
Chief, a few months ago, I was watching downtown parking lots and a young man had held down over by a third of the parking lot. I don't know if he did song and he wasn't causing any harm to himself or anybody else, so decided to move on. The next day I was walking the dog again and I across one of your officers over this final report out the computer's car. When the guy was done, I said, "You have an officer?" Yeah. I told him about what I saw the day before and described the individual to him. I said, how long are you in the police department? Well, he said, a couple of years. Where did you come from? He goes, Seattle. I go, well, how do you like it here? He goes, I love it. In Seattle, the city didn't like me, the citizens didn't like me. Here, the city government likes me, and the citizens like me. I said, where are you from? New Jersey. I go, well, how do you hear it goes?
So we actually were the lucky recipient of 3 Seattle police officers. And I was apprehensive about that. I'll be honest with you, because I thought, how are they going to downshift from large metropolitan city, go sort of thing to Gig Harbor, get out of your car, shake hands and be nice to people. They're spectacular. All 3 of them. I could not say enough good about them. They came highly trained, right? And they instantly adapted to this community. Now, I'll say that the support we get and this department gets is envied by many other departments, even within this county. They're some of the other my peers in the kind of looking over here saying, what do you got going on over there? What's happening? So our office is constantly flooded with food and candy and stuff like that, which I'm going to blame this on. And just nothing but positive response. I love to brag about this, and it's the lieutenant's favorite stat. We are going on 10 years now without a sustained citizen complaint. I mean, that is staggering, right? A police department of our size probably has a demeanor complaint, right? Oh, the officer was rude to me on a traffic stop. 2-3 times a year of our size. We haven't had one in over 10 years, and we take every complaint. Right, we'll take anonymous complaints, but not our officers are saying and doing and behaving the right way. Yeah, Steve.
Chief, given the constraints you have, what do you policy, how do you handle residents and scanty product? how under today's guidelines and things, how you guys handle it?
Right, so that Health, Housing and Human Services position, we could call it H3, is going to help address that. We do have like the Parks Code. Parks are closed at night, right? With some very minor exceptions for the city dock. So those sorts of things are available. We do have some alternate plans too, if we develop a significant homeless issue here of maybe contracting on an ongoing basis with some homeless shelters, right? Or recovery shelters, which are options. The law around homelessness is still developing, right? So there was a decision out of Boise of all things several years ago that said that it's not illegal to camp on public property and we can't make that illegal, right? And that's been a Ninth Circuit decision since then. So we have to follow that guidance, but now we're redefining that a little bit. Well, what if you have immediate housing options? Then can we make it illegal? And the answer appears to be yes. We need some case law to get settled first, and we'll let the bigger cities spend their money working that out before we try to implement those things. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Interesting as always, and again, we thank you for being here. Now it's time to find out what's going on in the community, the legal part of the community. Let's start with, well, Miriam, usually you go last. You get to go first this time.
All right, so on your tables, you will find the July events. One thing that I do want to point out is we will be changing locations on July 13th. We will be moving locations to the Gig Harbor Court, which is a residential, a retirement center that is behind the 4700 building. So literally the street right there. Go down that street, it'll be on the right. And we'll have signs out there. They have a theater room that we will be using. When it gets to debate season, we'll go into their cafeteria. It's much larger. And so they will also be providing a very light nibble in the morning along with coffee. So coffee will be free and they're hosting us there. I do want to put a plug in for Peninsula Light Company. They're our long-term sponsor. They don't have an update today, but I did want to put a shout out for them. Mayor Markley, would you like to come up and give an update? Oh, and the same time. Thank you. No, 8 o'clock to 9. What we've received some, yeah, we're changing the times. So there are some family adults that are wanting to or adults with kids. Yeah, well, that says something different. Anyway, so they have requested a later time start. So 8 to 9 will be our new time, starting at the new facility. What day? July 13th. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Chief, for being here. Nice to see so many of our officers here as well. I am so proud of our police department. They're phenomenal and amazing all the time, and they mean a great deal to me. So very happy that you guys are all here. So just briefly, at Monday's council meeting, the city council adopted our 2024 through 2029 transportation improvement program, otherwise known as the TIP. There's like, I don't know, 20 something projects on there, capital projects. Something that's been confusing that I wanted to clear up. They are numbered on that list, but they're not in priority. It's not like number 1 is the first thing the city's doing. Number 2 is the second thing. They have to be numbered just because they have to be numbered for the state, but that's not, there are projects that, you know, if something becomes more like an emergency repair, that goes to the top of the list, obviously. So it's just a guideline for the state to number how many projects we have, but it's not a priority list. We signed an agreement with Fish Food Bank for a human services grant for people that have fallen behind on their utilities during COVID and even after, those that are still behind. Our utility billing staff is amazing. There's only 2 of them. And we had about $250,000 in outstanding utility bills just about 4 months ago. And as of this report Monday night, we're down to $50,000 remaining in dollars to the city that are that are owed. They have been very compassionate with these people, and a lot of them are on payment plans, which this Fish Food Bank grant will help assist some of those people that are still having a trouble paying their bills. So that was nice to have that partnership with Fish Food Bank. Today, we have a study session today. We're going to be talking about the commercial fisherman's home port and kind of where we are with that. We're going to be talking about installing above ground fuel tanks at our Public Works Operations Center, which may sound scary, but it's actually a really, really good thing. We're not getting good quality fuel from the places where our larger trucks have to fuel up. It also takes them an hour. We have to have a staff person sit there in the truck for an hour while it fuels. These will be fast fuel, a lot cleaner fuel, better for the environment, safer for our officers will be able to fuel there. All of our city trucks and vehicles will be able to fuel right at our own op center. So hoping council will have a good discussion on that and hopefully pass that in a couple weeks. And then today we also have an update on our 2023-24 capital funding options. So we're looking at ways to get some extra dollars to fund an insane amount of capital projects on our list. Trying to get council to slow down a little bit on those capital projects. And then just sign up on our website to receive any notifications. You can pick which ones you want to get, what you're interested in. Sign up for the Gigabyte. That newsletter goes out every Friday. I have my top 5, and then we have a Did You Know section now. We have a new comp plan corner that talks about where we are in our comprehensive plan update. So we want to hear from you. We're going to have open houses and more jubilees. We kind of crack up. It wasn't really a jubilee, but our staff have like these little parties that they're going to have to try to get the community to come and tell us what you want Gig Harbor to look like in 20 years. So that's happening now. And we now also include department updates in every agenda for Monday night meetings. This was an internal document for about a year where each department, it would go out to all staff and council. Each department would provide an update on specific things happening across their department. So this is now a public document for everybody to be able to see. We wanted people to know what's happening all across the city in every department. So that's attached to our agendas now. So read that and you'll get a better idea of what our staff is doing every day, which is a lot. So there you go.
Thank you very much, Mayor Markley. Chief Doan.
Well, it's 4th of July. We're really excited about this. It's our favorite time of the year. Just a reminder that the city does have an ordinance that there is no fireworks whatsoever in the city limits. This is the first year. And the county, you can only do fireworks on the 4th of July. So if you want to make a report, you can go to fireworksreport.com or call a non-emergency line, right? So only call if you're missing a finger or you've actually caught something on fire, call 911. So this is a new year for that, and we'll see how that goes. Last but not least, the chief, I appreciate him. Our firefighters did do a good job the other day, but at the same time, so did they. While we had our firefighters stopping the fire, keeping it out of the homes and out of the church, they were getting people out of their homes and out of the church. So they were evacuating those people while we were doing that. And it was a great coordination, and their officers did a good job and more than a good job, a great job. And we really appreciate our partnership and working together on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Doan. And we've got Dan Gregory here this morning to give us an update on what's happening with the school district.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Chief Busey and staff. We've got a wonderful partnership with the city and especially with the police department. And just from speaking on behalf of the schools, just thank you for your accessibility. And as a matter of fact, Officer Dominguez and I were on the phone last night between 10:30 and 11 handling an issue. So they're just always there for us. So thank you very much. Quick update on our capital projects. It was not that long ago that we passed a capital bond. And as you know, we've got some new elementary schools, the rebuilt Artendale, rebuilt Evergreen, brand new Swiftwater, and Pioneer. But we are also doing the modernizations of Kopachuk and Key Peninsula Middle School. Kopachuk is just about all the way ready. They are looking really good, and Key Peninsula, we should be finishing up this summer. As a matter of fact, when I leave here, I'm on my way out to Key Peninsula Middle School just to get an update on that project. But I just wanted to highlight that and thank you all for supporting that capital bond measure. Our kids are benefiting from it, and those schools are beautiful. So we're really looking forward to those middle schools being completely modernized. In November, we will be doing an event called Focus on Education. And when we do that, we will invite the public into those two modernized middle schools at Kopachuk and Key Peninsula Middle School. So watch for that. Also on our facilities, we are trying to post regularly on all reader boards. No fireworks on school grounds on 4th of July. So Chief Doan, thank you for that reminder. So we're trying to protect those fields and everything as well. Finally, the school year did wrap up. Our high school sports teams did a wonderful job at both Peninsula and Gig Harbor. Every year they're a part of the South Sound Conference. Every year the South Sound Conference provides an all sports award, and they just look at fall, winter, and spring sports. And Gig Harbor and Peninsula were again in the top 2 spots, and they have been that way ever since the South Sound Conference started. We're always up there occupying those first 2 spots with our local student athletes. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Obviously, the administrators don't get the summer off. Kurt, Steve, would you like to?
Well, sure. Thank you, John, and thanks again, Chief. Appreciate your time. So a couple of things for Penn Met. Our regular meeting falls on the 4th. So we won't be having our next regular meeting, and the Penn Met offices will be closed on the 4th as well. So super stoked after my years with the department to hear the progress on fireworks. So hopefully we'll lessen the impact to the community with that. Some exciting stuff for Penn Met. So summer camp started this week. So our Penn Met rec programs are in full swing. Also going Wednesday nights in July. We'll be having music in the park out at Zamel. So that first one starts on the 12th. Fall sports registration starts on July 16th. So even though school just got out, we're right around the corner from getting stuff going. We had a couple of meetings earlier this week, Monday and Tuesday, for the steering committee and public meetings for the seniors and aquatics feasibility studies. So I want to thank the community for participating in those, both the steering committee and the public comment, and providing input. At our last board meeting, we heard the first reading of a resolution to consider a levy lid lift for the November ballot. So we'll be considering that second reading, considering that resolution at our meeting on July 18th. So the resolution passes, obviously there will be much more to come on that. So one other exciting piece, so we're out for bid for phase 2 of the CRC project, and that bid period closes July 10th. So hopefully we're looking forward to getting some exciting information out on that real soon. So thank you, John.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. And Kurt.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Markey, for being here, and Chief for your presentation today. I just want to let the community know that at the annual Paddlers Cup on the Sunday community dragon boat races, the city had a team, and 4 of your officers were on the team. Thank you. Were any of you on it? There you were. Yeah. Did you have a blast or what? Oh yeah. Yeah. That event keeps getting more and more competitive. It's just so much fun. So what's happening next week? Derek Kilmer's going to be here. Okay. Right here. So join us. And then the following week, we're moving to a new location. It's right down the street right here. Just drive down that street to the very end. And on the right side is the Gig Harbor Court Retirement Community. And we'll be meeting in their cafeteria. They're going to be providing food, some coffee and some edibles for us. So that's going to be really fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. And thanks to Chief Busey for being here. And thanks to all of you for being here. And we'll see you here next